to hear from Srila Prabhupada. So we're going to attempt to speak on some very wonderful verses today from the 60th chapter of the 10th canto. Before we begin, we would like to recite the invocation, so everyone can please join in. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen, but I cannot confirm 100% that this will work. So let's see what we get happening here. Okay, can everyone see my screen? If you could let me know at home.
Not yet, Mom. Not yet. I'm still seeing you guys.
Okay, so that's strange. Try again. Okay, let me try now.
Yes.
Now is it working?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 60, Pastime of Krishna and Rukmini, and we're starting with verse 49. We have 3 verses to read today before we get to a purport. So we'll start with the Sanskrit. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sadvayetat Trato Kamastvam Rajaputri Pralambita Mayoditam Yaranvata Sarvam Tat Satyam Evahi.
English translation. The Supreme Lord said, O saintly lady, O princess, we deceived you only because we wanted to hear you speak like this. Indeed, everything you said in reply to my words is most certainly true.
Okay. Text 50. Yanyan kamaya se kaman maya kamaya bhamini shanti ekanta bhaktaya stava kalyana nityada.
Whatever benedictions you hope for in order to be of material desires are ever yours, O fair and noble lady, for you are my unalloyed devotee.
Okay, and text 51. Upalabdam pati prema pati ratyam chate nage yanvakyas chalyamanaya nadir maya apakshita.
O sinless one, I have now seen firsthand the pure love and chaste attachment you have for your husband. Even though shaken by my words, your mind could not be pulled away from me.
Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following verse describing the pure love between Rukmini and Krishna. Savata dvamsa rahitam sati api dvamsa karane yadbhava bandhanam yuno sa prema parikritita. When the affectionate bond between a young man and a young woman can never be destroyed, even when there is every cause for the destruction of that relationship, the attachment between them is said to be pure love. This is the nature of the eternal loving affairs between Lord Krishna and his pure conjugal associates.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam dadati swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Yevacha Patitanam Bhavaneyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Okay. And when I first read these verses and this pastime, verses before, the first thing that caught my mind was it's from a cultural point of view, because you have a very chaste lady, a wife, and she's her husband is basically saying, leave me, like I'm not good enough for you. And so I think from my Indian cultural point of view, it's like, wait, that's not an option. You know, divorce is not an option, separation is not an option. You're basically stuck with the person. Like, that's just the way it is, you know. So it was interesting when I've read this pastor, it's like I could sort of, the fear that must be coming through her, because it's like there is no plan B here. You are it. You're it, Krishna, whether you're qualified or not, you're it. And it reminded me when Prabhupada would say, a blind uncle is better than no uncle. Just you got the man, you know. It's like, so that actually, I could, when I read that, I think, and in terms of my own upbringing, that unfortunately, some people in my family, there may be a hint of divorce, but it's never spoken about. It's never, you know, they could end up joining some crazy fanatic sect and it'd be more spoken about than that person, that cousin, or that one that they're not together. It's just, that's how it is. So that's what came to my mind first, like this lady singing, what are you talking about? You're here now and I'm not going anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, so this aspect, so we can see in the later parts of the verses, just on the cultural aspect, that and whether we think the culture is correct or incorrect, this is also another thing, because different cultures have different ways of doing different things. So we see that, as Bhakti was mentioning, in this culture, that divorce is not a done thing. So Queen Rukmini must be feeling very intense that Krishna is even, contemplating or presenting himself as disqualified and encouraging her to move on. If we just really live into what she must be experiencing, the complete torment. I mean, growing up in the West, divorce is a common thing, 1, 2, 3 times, separate, don't get married, don't live together, whatever it is. So you might not get the same experience, but when you think about it from a perspective of deep culture, and this culture also is rooted in Shastra, So it's not like someone's made it up. It's coming directly from scripture. So it's like the law of God. So people are seeing it like this is just the way it's been dictated. At the moment, we're reading the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. We have a reading group that we've had going on since the lockdown started, May 2020. And when we couldn't get together, we started a WhatsApp reading group. We don't all read together like in a group, but we read 4 pages a day of one book, and we write one line of a reflection on the WhatsApp group. So we're all sharing and we're all reading. And since then, we've kept it going after lockdown. Since then, we've read about 25 of Srila Prabhupada's books just by reading 4 pages a day. I can't encourage it enough. This is Vaisheshika Prabhu's inspiration, be a sage page by page. And just by reading a small section every day. And how long does it take to read? 10 minutes. Yeah. 4 pages takes 10 minutes, but literally over like the last 4 years, we've read with this group of devotees, we've read about 20 or 25 of Srila Prabhupada's books. And it's just amazing. And I'm, all my years as brahmachari, I never read that many books. Of course, I read the Bhagavatam, but it's just so incredible. So anyway, we're reading teachings of Lord Kapila Dev at the moment. And it's incredible how Srila Prabhupada is, he's really stressing at certain points on the Manu Samhita. And the Manu Samhita is quite heavy in many ways, especially around the dictates of things like marriage and the conduct of ladies and how things are meant to be culturally. We might look at that and find it an almost impossible thing to implement in the modern day. So we have to see, I guess, from different angles and different perspectives. When we're reading the Shastra, we have to see where they're at, how they're experiencing it, what Krishna is trying to say, whether it's applicable to us, whether we can really take to it wholeheartedly may be a different thing, because our upbringing, our experience may be completely different. But actually, we see, I just noticed again this morning that in the last verse, it mentions pati, twice it mentions the word pati. And that's because in Vedic culture, and you were sharing with this, that even my wife's mother and father, they never called each other by their first name.
Right.
She would only call the husband Pati, or she would had a nickname for him, another name but it wasn't. But often you call the husband Pati or Swami, like in Vedic culture, Indian culture. So the husband is always addressed with this mood of awe and reverence. And then the wife is addressed as Devi. So she's addressed as goddess. So like that, it's always a mood of deep respect. So, this idea is that each of them see, and I remember when we got married, one senior devotee, she was, actually our guru, he said that you have to see each other as devotees first and husband and wife second. Wow. And so each morning you should offer each other respect. Vancha kalpa tribhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And should also see that, he's not your property, she's not your property. They're the property of Krishna, and really see them first as a devotee and have this mood of respect and appreciation. And this is really a very powerful and strong foundation, which I would say, unfortunately, is not always so prominent in the modern day. And I was thinking, even in Western culture, though, divorce isn't something that was even really so prominent until there was a one king who introduced divorce. And I thought my wife could say a little something, because she's a big royal family.
Well, okay, side fact, Henry VIII, because it was Catholic Church, and he wanted sons, and his first wife could not produce sons, and clearly it was her fault. So he wanted divorce, and the Pope, this is 1527, just for the years, Pope said, no way, we don't do this sort of thing. I said, okay, so I'll become the head of my own church. And that's how he created the Church of England, so that he could keep basically getting divorced, and sometimes he didn't divorce the wives, he killed them, side that. But that's actually the foundations of the Church of England, and it's interesting that fast forward hundreds of years later. The current king now, King Charles, when he was Prince Charles, when his mother was on the throne, because he's also a divorcee, he wants to marry a divorcee, that was his mistress, so it was put to him, how will you defend the Church of England? What are your foundations based on? He said, I'm not going to defend the faith of England, I'm going to defend the faiths, meaning Hindus, Christians, everyone. I'll defend all of them. So that was his way of getting around his own issues of having a mistress and being divorced, which is interesting because that family is supposed to represent the faith of England.
So, side fact, sorry, we
That's
digress. But divorce even wasn't a prominent thing. It
Yes.
wasn't an allowed thing coming from the church, Christian religion, mostly in faith, it's not a thing there. So the point being that Queen Rukmini is experiencing heavy distress just at the fact of what Krishna may be insinuating. It's immoral, it's improper, it's not allowed, there's no plan B. What are you talking about? So just to enter into that space, and we were with Mahatma Prabhu last night, and he was discussing and talking about this idea that when we read the Bhagavatam, to really try to live into the emotions and the feelings of what is also going on there. But leading to the more philosophical perspective of what's being presented here, we see that Krishna has this tendency to test his devotees. So I don't know if anyone here has ever experienced that in their lives. No. Oh, I guess we're the only ones then. Sorry. That Krishna has a tendency to test his devotees. And in this situation, he's putting Queen Rukmini really to the test. And then he's so pleased. I don't know if they'll still see me, but we're going to go with this. So then he says, "O sinless one, I have seen now firsthand the pure love and chaste attachment you have for your husband." So it's very, very powerful. First he says, "O sinless one." So he's like confirming her purity, her chastity. Imagine if you say, "I'm no good, I'm useless, you should leave me." And she says, "Sounds like a great idea." And pulls out her little black book, starts looking up some other options. But he's like, "Oh, sinless one, I've now seen with my own eyes firsthand, I've tested you, and I see the pure love and the chaste attachment that you have for me." And he says, "Even though shaken by my words," and I think this is really important, shaken, he's saying, I see that this has upset you. It's disturbed you. It's discouraged you. It's shaken you. Even though shaken by my words, your mind could not be pulled away from me. Isn't that powerful? Now, Prabhupada uses this terminology that we have to have unflinching faith. And what does unflinching mean? Unflinching means that if something happens that could make us flinch, we don't flinch, right? Our eyes don't blink. We're not scared. We're not shocked. We're not nervous. But we could see that she was shaken. It was disturbing, but her faith was fixed. She was so strong and chaste to Krishna.
Now, I was going to add that. So this teasing that Krishna's doing with Rukmini, he's teasing her. I was thinking, that's what he does to us. We take to this path, and he's always teasing. And the point is, however, do we stay chaste like Rukmini, or when he starts teasing, is it that's it? Time to go to another temple. Time to change my services because this one gets on my nerves. Because Krishna's teasing. I mean, if you're fortunate, I guess he'll start talking to you directly in DT form or in front of you. Otherwise, he teases through other devotees, just other personalities, maybe through your health, or maybe just the environment that you're in. But yeah, I was thinking that for Rukmini, for a moment, she was perplexed and disturbed and what is he saying? You know, but she remained, no, whatever you say, and then she gives arguments back, whatever you say, I'm going to still remain here. And I thought, yeah, that's the test for us as devotees, because one point that I actually noted down was that how chaste do we remain to Krishna? And also, material life is hard. Material world, material life is hard, but we kind of accept it. You know, we accept there's taxis, we accept that the buses don't come on time, or this, or the boss at work is like this, or families like that. But what really hurts is when you start to get teased, tested in spiritual life, because we chose that life for the most part. You know, we chose to take to this path. And that takes a certain level of vulnerability as well, because it involves the heart. We choose to be here. So when Krishna starts to mess with us like that and makes it out like, maybe you should go, and that comes through situations, tests, it's hard. It's actually, and when he almost feels like he's pulling the rug out from under your feet, you think, oh, maybe I should go then, Krishna. Maybe that's what you're saying. But because if you think about it, when we take to this path and we choose Krishna, we change our hairstyle. Some of us change our hairstyle. We change the way, what we wear, the clothes we wear, how we dress. We definitely change your diet. You change the place that you choose to spend your time. And as you get older, you realize time is very important. So you're choosing the time you actually get up and go to a certain place. So it's very scary when Krishna starts his teasing. You're like, so then I was thinking, yeah, we need to become as unshakable as Rukmini. And what does that mean for each of us? Some of us, it may mean, yeah, I really need to make sure I'm charting my rounds, maybe. Or if I'm charting my rounds, I'm really going deeper into those rounds. Some, it may be just, maybe I need to pick up one of Prabhupada's books now, every now and then, read it, maybe hear from devotees, start attending classes more. But we know what we need to fill those gaps where we don't get so shaken, because, yeah, if you don't know Krishna, he likes to tease. He's a bit of a joker. And we don't want to, we don't want to be in a situation where we get really scared and frightened and think Krishna's trying to push us away, because like it was saying in this verse that was just read, it's a test. And then he's checking out, okay, you're cool with that, no problem. And then we ride that wave, and then he does another test. Like, okay, let me ride that wave. And that's just the way it is with this supreme teaser. So that's one of the lessons, the takeaways that I had, that we all get put in that Rukmini situation, but what does it bring out of us? You know, where do we go, basically?
Yeah, do we run to another shelter? Do we seek a different pati, different master? Because pati means master. So do we seek a different master? Do we find shelter somewhere else? Or do we think, no, Krishna is just testing me? And what are these tests? Actually, we're in the material world, which is not a place of illusion, but it's a place that is certainly temporary. And the famous words of George Harrison, all things come to pass. You know, all this eventually passes. But when we're here, it's like Srila Prabhupada described, it's like being in an airport, you know, in transit, and you open up your luggage and you start putting out your clothes and you set up home and you make a bed and you just make yourself comfortable in a place that's actually just a temporary residence. It's not going to be a permanent place. And often what I see is that Krishna is really testing how attached to the material world I am, and how much do I take myself overly serious. Like one devotee said once, you take yourself too seriously. Sometimes you just have to be able to laugh at yourself, you know, because we think we're so important. We think we're so instrumental in how everything's happening. I was speaking with a devotee the other day, and he said, no, I couldn't possibly go there and do this, because what about all of this? All of this is going on. If I leave, everything will fall apart. And I was thinking, no, it probably won't fall apart. The world was going on before you showed up, and guess what? It'll keep going on after you leave. And everything keeps going on. I remember many, many years ago, I was working a job. I got really sick and I was laying in bed with this heavy flu. And I was thinking, oh no, we've got these deadlines to meet. We've got this thing. If I don't go in, everything's going to be ruined. Oh God. And I was like in such anxiety. Meanwhile, I was sick, but I was in anxiety and stress at the same time. But I was in bed for like 2 weeks. And then after like a week, I got calls that everything was going on. After the end of 2 weeks, they did better without me than they would have done with me. And I started to think, what am I so worried about? Why am I so stressed out about it? And it was actually around that time that I started to get more deeply into spiritual life, because I thought maybe I'm taking all of this a little too seriously and there's something else that I could or should be focusing on. But even in our spiritual life, sometimes we become attached to name, fame, adoration, distinction, position, titles, whatever it is, we become attached to certain things. And Krishna is always trying to tease them away from us to help us get a proper perspective on these things. So like that, I think this pastime is, and Krishna, we know with one action, he accomplishes many things. So just with this one pastime, there are so many unlimited lessons that could be taken out of this. The position, you could say, maybe from cultural perspective, the relationship between husband and wife, and even Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he quotes this verse that says, when a man and a woman, when their connection, it seems very mundane, like when a man and woman's connection can't be broken. Here, let me read it exactly. He says, when the affectionate bond between a young man and a young woman can never be destroyed, even when there is every cause for the destruction of that relationship, the attachment between them is said to be pure love. Now, this is interesting. I didn't look up where this verse has come from, but I will definitely look it up, or if one of our pundits online is familiar. But he then, the disciples of Prabhupada say, this is the nature of the eternal loving affairs between Krishna and his pure conjugal associates. So the point is that there will be tests. There are going to be tests in all of our relationships, and especially in our relationship with Krishna. And as my wife was saying, that where do we take shelter? How easily do we want to just give up and walk away? Or do we go through it? And it's the same also in relationships. Sometimes relationships, not sometimes, all the time, relationships are the most difficult thing in the material world. I mean, managing things is easy. Managing a relationship is just so difficult. I remember having the realization that this is a clear indication that it is the topmost spiritual experience. A personal God and personal relationships with God is the topmost thing, because it's so difficult in the material world. It's like, how often do we just want to run away from relationships, run away from circumstances and situations which just perpetually test us? And again, Mahaprabhu was discussing this point last night, how sometimes when we see or identify the faults in others, and I don't know about all of you, but it's very easy for me to see the faults in everybody else. So easy to find fault in others, but we can only see those things which we also possess. So if you don't have it, you might not see it. Or if you're actually self-satisfied and really situated on a high spiritual platform, it doesn't affect you, it doesn't bother you, you just carry on. And you realize that sometimes it's just between them and Krishna, and it doesn't really have anything to do with me. It's not necessarily a personal thing. Anyway, so these are a few topics. We're going to leave a few moments for interaction with everyone else.
Actually, one point was just that final verse that you just read in the Prabhupada, and the disciples of Prabhupada is saying this is the example of the conjugal love between Krishna and his devotees, the strength that it cannot be broken, the faith. So I was thinking, here we are in New York, and Srila Prabhupada came to New York, and we were yesterday in Matchless Gifts with one devotee and reading about the pastimes of Matchless Gifts and how Prabhupada came, and the struggles and the tests and the teasing, you could say. I mean, even just on the Jaladutta, I mean, personally, I wouldn't have been on the Jaladutta, but if I'd had the heart attacks and this, and I'd be like, wait a minute, I'm coming here on the order of my spiritual master. And he came here, and we read about how, at least for a year, he was singing, maybe I should go back. You know, what am I doing here? And going to, and just so I just thought, this exemplifies the unshakable faith and the chasteness of Prabhupada's faith to Krishna and the spiritual master, that he stayed. And look, now we're all here because of that. And one point that stood out in the reading we did yesterday was when they moved to Manchester. It was a very hot New York summer, which I'm not looking forward to, but and it was describing that it was Mukunda Maharaj and Carl
Jurgens.
Who was, I don't know who he went on
When did
to.
he become Carl Jurgens?
Carl
Did he take
Carla
initiation?
Fati.
Huh?
Carla Fati or something like that.
Okay.
Carla
Carlapathy.
So it's hot. So then they're carrying things for Prabhupada to move into the apartment. But then it's described how Prabhupada was also carrying 2 heavy suitcases, one in each hand, and Mukunda Maharaj sort of looked, he's quite old, and yes, he looked like he was struggling, and it breaks your heart, like, wow, that he did that at that age, just to carry these heavy bags down the road in this hot summer. And
From the Bowery. That's where he was living before.
yeah, to come here and
So they were all carrying something, but Prabhupada was pulling his 2 bags of luggage.
he's,
Mukunda Maharaj describes, he says, you know, he was thinking, oh, he had 2 heart attacks on the boat.
yeah, he was thinking
It's a
that.
super hot day and he's just pulling these bags. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the founder of
Unshakable.
Acharya.
Yes, he was determined in his faith, and he was described what teasing was being done by Krishna and all the tests he had. Even when he moved in, he remained. So I just thought that really exemplified his mood.
That reminds me last night again, before he mentioned that once a devotee came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, you know, this is happening, that's happening, I'm just getting really discouraged. And Prabhupada said, you know, you don't really have the right to get discouraged. If anyone here should be discouraged, it's me. Because I came here and there was so much opposition. I got no help from my godbrothers. I got no help in so many ways. You know, if anyone should be discouraged, it's me, but you don't have the right to be discouraged. So Prabhupada just went through so much just to create this space for us. So, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I guess we can open it up. I haven't been watching anything, chats or whatever might be there. I see something. Someone, yes. Okay, let's, so let me just turn this around. So yeah, I'd also like to, Adi Purush Prabhu is going to say something, but I would like to acknowledge Adi Purush Prabhu for being here solid every single day. It's
I need it more than anyone.
What's that?
I need it more than anyone.
It's just, I think it's just amazing every single day without like fail. I mean, it's like here in the morning, making sure that, you know, kirtan is going on for devotees online and being present for class, no matter who's giving class, and being tuned in, you know, it's like just incredible. So thank you, Adi Purush.
It's very delightful to hear from you guys. You know, your personal relishing of speaking simple truths that we all know. It's very satisfying. We see the subject matter here as pure love, and the possibility of being deviated from that. Rukmini is fixed no matter what. And the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, we're praying to Prabhupada what to say, matra sparshas to come, right? The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, heat and cold, fame and infamy, come like the winter and summer season. One must tolerate them without being disturbed. And we ask Prabhupada, whoa, wait a minute. You're not disturbed. You don't feel the heat. You don't feel the discouragement when somebody is criticizing, saying something you don't like to hear. And Prabhupada said, what is not disturbed is
Pure love.
your service.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, the relationship with the spiritual master what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? And the prescribed duty given by the spiritual master is that immovable North Star, that no matter which way the wind blows, no matter if the waves are going or the rain or what, we know he asked, I can't unring that bell. He asked me to go this way. This is my service. And if we don't have a relationship with the spiritual master where we say, what do you want me to do? Or a relationship with the representative of the spiritual master, what should I do under this circumstance? It seems there's adversity. It seems unpalatable to me. I don't want to do it. I like it. I don't like it. But when we have guru and we have prescribed duty, Prabhupada Desh, the place of service, and no matter what happened, then we can be fixed. And Jesus said that thing, if you love me, do what I tell you. Right? So all this stuff in Bhagavad Gita, all these modes of this and the demons and then finally Krishna says, I get it. What do you want me to do? Right? Who are we doing it for? Helps us be fixed up in what we're going to do. What do you want me to do? Then he tells you. Then one of the things I just want to say really briefly is that I've had a lot of situations where I really felt severely tested. And one mantra that really helped me, I would say, here directly, Rukmini sees this is coming from Krishna. But a lot of things that happen, think it's coming from the other devotees, coming from the government, it's coming from no. My mantra is, this is coming from Krishna.
Yeah.
This is a test. And if we don't pass the test, what happens?
Get tested again.
We get the same test again. So when we have prescribed duty, we can stay fixed in a particular trajectory. And easy, difficult. Sometimes people laugh at you. Sometimes they praise you. Sometimes it looks like a big success. Sometimes it looks like a disaster. Sometimes people are criticizing you. Sometimes they're praising you. Doesn't matter. That's all just peripheral. Well, glory to Srila Prabhupada, who showed us by his own example.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Pure love. Oh, talking about pure love.
I don't know if you want.
Thank you so much for such an amazing class. I wanted to mention 2 points. One of them is a little question actually. I was so grateful. I was at Sadhu Sangha and I'm so happy I met, I was seeing our Gurudev, Ranat Maharaj, and he mentioned 2 points, just like you mentioned. One was about Srila Prabhupada and how, like you said, unwavering faith in Krishna and also such deep compassion. Maharaj was saying how Prabhupada didn't even know us, but he came and and overcame bearing those so much difficulties in New York City, in a foreign country. And then Maharaj moved on and mentioned that a sign of a real devotee is always appreciate other devotees and people's activities and find no fault in them. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, how can I ever reach to that stage? Find no fault to others. And I wanted to ask Maharaj, but there were like 3,000 devotees. So I wanted to ask also you, Mataji, mentioned this point, find no fault. And you were saying it is so true. Like relationships are harder things to deal, like to handle in this world. And it's like a mirror. Relationship is like a mirror. What you see in the mirror is actual reflection of your own. And I was like, okay, I always find faults on how can I practically reach that? I wanted to ask Maharaj, but you're also Maharaj's disciple. Maybe Maharaj is speaking through me to use through
No
me,
pressure, right?
through you. So how can we practically? I was thinking, Maharaj, what can I do?
I'll let my wife answer that. The better half.
The question is how to find
How to find fault.
how to know. It's interesting, one devotee messaged me just yesterday from London. Similar thing, how to always be grateful for Krishna and Prabhupada, what they've given him. So he said, how can I do that? So just reminds me similar. And I just said, well, sometimes we have to train ourselves, which is fair. Sometimes because we're used to seeing, oh, why does he sit like that? Or why do they do it like that? We're used to it. So it's a bit like exercising. We've got to train, we've got to bring out the muscle, as it were. So just make it a point to purposefully switch the mind almost, so that when you see someone, it's like force yourself almost to see, if anything, they have a nice smile. If you just to go, if it's just on the surface level, before you can go really deep, before we can really truly appreciate, they're always present. They say, I mean, I think it's Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was saying, if you can't appreciate anything, at least appreciate, oh, they put nice tilak on, when there was some argument with two of his disciples. Well, at least you can appreciate they put nice tilak. So this is also what I was saying to this devotee, that make it a point to note things down on a daily basis before you go to bed or something. What am I grateful? This was in relation to be grateful, but just one thing that you're grateful for to Krishna, where it doesn't have to mean your spiritual life, it will be wherever. I'm grateful to you, Krishna, for this. And that will get you in tune to always being grateful to Krishna, not feeling it's me. So in the same way, we have to purposefully sometimes do that, because it's not something like Maharaj that will just flow naturally, but it will become natural if you make yourself do it, if that makes sense. Sometimes we have to do that exercise, as it were.
And it's like devotees went to Prabhupada in the early days, and during Mangalarti, they said, Prabhupada, we're so tired, we don't feel like dancing. And Prabhupada said, just move your feet back and forth and pretend like you feel like you're dancing, and then after some time, you'll just be dancing. So like that. But you reminded me of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and I wanted to look up the quote that he says, when faults in others misguide and delude you, when the faults in others misguide us and delude us, have patience, introspect, find faults within yourself. Know that others cannot harm you unless you harm yourself. So this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's perspective, that first, the faults in someone that we're seeing in someone else is just misguiding and deluding us. So we have to be patient, which means we have to stop. We have to introspect and look within and see, oh, I also have faults. I'm not perfect. This is the false ego protecting us, making us think that we're perfect and someone else is imperfect. But we're also imperfect. And then he says, know that others can't harm you, because often finding faults in others, it's affecting our perception of ourselves, and we think it's going to have an adverse effect on us. But whatever they're doing, it can't hurt me unless I hurt myself. Anyway, that's Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Pusham Antam Aravindadayatam Avatam Samasitam Purasundarantam Kandarpakotikamaniya Visheshasubha Govinda Hari Purusha Govinda Hari Purusha Govinda Hari Purusha Angani Asya Sakalam Vihanti Asyanti Panti Kalyanti Vihanti Ananti Maya Sadhu Alam Vigrasya Govinda Namaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Krishna Jai Shri Shivana Muladhar Shri Guru Chandra Ki Jai Jai Baba Bhakti Prabhu Jai Verse 9.
Great honor, reverence. By His grace, one can cross the ocean.
Okay, there. Okay, how is everybody doing? Janita Prabhu, thank you. Wonderful class. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone wants to share? This is the afterglow.
Do you have a moment for just a question that was unrelated to the excellent talk today, Ananda Bihari?
Yeah, yeah.
What is the, and forgive the neophyte nature of this question here, what's the significance of the small deities to the bottom right and of on the altar?
Thank
You
you.
know, the little
Yeah.
ones.
It's called Chota deities, as far as I know.
Chota?
You can't pour yogurt on the big deity, so you need functional smaller deities to do abhishek, like milk offering.
Okay.
So they're there for that, as far as I know. I'm not the biggest pujari out there.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful though. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Also for the swing festival.
Swing festival.
Oh, that's right.
Check
Thank
out
you.
the. Yeah, and Ratha Yatra is coming up. Yeah, I hope I'll see some familiar faces there. I'll put on my best clothes.
All right. Anyone wants to speak? Okay. All right, then have a wonderful day. Give it to Krishna. Always remember Krishna. And despite all the imperfections that we may have, we're never disqualified from the devotees association. We're never disqualified from doing service. And sometimes we may feel down. Sometimes we may feel discouraged. Oh, I'm not qualified. I'm this and that. It's okay. Just get back up and move on. It's all good. We're all in this together. Right? Nice seeing everybody. Hare Krishna.